Hey YouTube, welcome back. Today we are going wide. Well, wide-ish, I guess, at least for the medium format space. We're going to check out the Contax Zeiss 645 35mm f3.5. So let's get into it on this episode of Heritage Focus. If you watched my prior video on the Contax 645 80mm, then you know that the Contax 645 system entered a medium format market in 1999 that was already dominated by the likes of Mamiya and Pentax, who had their own respective 645 systems. They differentiated themselves by offering autofocus, which was a first for the medium format space at the time. Now, if you're curious as to how the autofocus performs, definitely check out my Contax 645 80mm f2 video. I have some footage of the autofocus performance of that lens, and this 35mm performs almost exactly the same. Now, the Contax 645 system wasn't around very long, only about 6 years, so in most cases, there's only one version of all of these lenses, and that's true for the 35mm as well. The lens is a Distagon design consisting of 11 elements in 8 groups, and all Zeiss Contax 645 lenses have the famous Zeiss T-Star coating. As this lens is not a native Fuji GFX lens, we'll be using the Fringer Contax 645 to GFX adapter. This is version 2 of the adapter, which has support for phase detect autofocus capabilities of the GFX 100S sensor. The lens is listed as 877 grams on the spec sheet from Zeiss, but my copy weighs 904 grams with a front lens cap. The adapter weighs between 285 and 290 grams depending on how my scale is feeling at the moment, and the combined weight is just under 1200 grams, 2.65 pounds, or 2000 Cheetos. This combination of lens and adapter is more than twice as heavy as the Fuji 30mm f3.5, which weighs in at 510 grams. The aperture range is from f3.5 to f32 in full stop increments. When used with the Fringer adapter, however, f32 is actually unavailable, and if you try and set the lens to f32, it results in the aperture being reset to wide open. The aperture mechanism is electronically controlled, and while you can turn the aperture ring at any time, the aperture itself will not adjust unless power is provided to the lens. The lens is an autofocus lens, and while the lens can be manually focused, it was clearly intended to be used with autofocus. The focus throw is kind of long, and the motor doesn't ever fully disengage, so it makes for a jerky and awkward manual focus experience. The lens is an internal focus design, and as such it remains the same length regardless of focus. The lens measures 4¼ inches or 108 millimeters in length. The Fringer adapter adds 2 inches, so the fully adapted lens has a maximum length of 6¼ inches, 159 millimeters, or 1.6 Twinkies. The lens accepts 95mm filters. Yes, I said 9.5, enjoy working with that. The minimum focus distance of the lens is 19.75 inches or 50 centimeters. This is what the fully adapted lens looks like on the Fuji GFX 100S camera. Finding a copy of the lens isn't terribly difficult, but you'll probably end up sourcing it on eBay. At the time of filming, KEH and Used PhotoPro only had one copy available each, ranging from $769 to $913 USD. There is a good selection of the lens available on eBay. There were 33 copies available at the time of filming, ranging from just under $700 to around $1,600. Now, continuing part of the new feature for Heritage Focus, and where it makes sense, I thought I'd provide a suggested target price for a good quality, used copy of the lens being reviewed. This will change over time, but as of September 2023, a good target price for this lens, in excellent condition, would be close to $775 USD. Let's take a look at some sample images and see how the lens performs on the Fuji GFX 100S. All of the images were shot on the 100S with the Fringer adapter, and remember that if you want to see the full resolution images yourself or just get the EXIF information, they are always available to download at heritagefocus.org. Since the lens was designed for a larger film plane, Vignette is not much of a concern here, even wide open at f3.5. Bokeh is okay with this lens. Traditionally, wide-angle lenses aren't the source of spectacular bokeh, and that holds true here. Shooting closer up to your subject with a distant background is your best bet for bokeh, and wide open, the bokeh is pleasant, but nothing too notable. Flare control on the lens can be problematic. The large front element, again remember the 95mm filter thread, will catch light in a number of ways, and you should expect to deal with some significant flare depending on how visible the sun is in your scene. Chromatic aberration isn't too much of an issue here since the lens already has a smaller, widest aperture, but it is present at times, and I would rate it as average when it comes to controlling CA. Sharpness is an area where this lens excels. Thanks to the larger image circle from the 645 format, you can expect a sharp image, edge to edge, even wide open. Stopping down to about f8 appears to be the sweet spot for this lens on the GFX sensor. The lens and its T-star coatings, paired with the GFX 100 megapixel sensor, result in a deep and vibrant color palette similar to the 80mm f2. Interestingly, I didn't notice a slightly vintage color palette as I had on the other lenses of this series. The color appears very modern to my eyes, if perhaps on the cooler side. Now it's time for the HTSA. The HTSA is our patent-pending heritage focus highly technical subjective analysis. This is where I assign quantitative values to specific lens characteristics based on absolutely no scientific measurements whatsoever and based solely on my experience and personal opinion. When it comes to bokeh, I rated it a 3 out of 10. It's a wide-angle lens, there's not much you can expect here. Color is a strong suit, though as mentioned it did seem to run a bit on the cooler side of the color spectrum. 8 out of 10. Perhaps the wide angle brought in so much detail that I didn't notice too many unique characteristics of the lens, but it does have something about it that separates it from more modern lens renderings. 6 out of 10. Flare control can be problematic, but CA does seem well controlled. 6 out of 10. Size is, well, large, like really large. 2 out of 10. The weight of this lens puts it squarely in the class of weaponry. This is 2 out of 10. Price is where it's at here. This is a great value, especially considering that it has autofocus, as long as you don't mind dealing with the bulky size. 9 out of 10. That's it for the Contax 645 35mm f3.5 on the GFX 100S. If you enjoyed the content and found it useful, please do that thing and the other thing. Thank you again for watching Heritage Focus, and remember, you can always download the full resolution samples of the images shared today at heritagefocus.org.